start at quite a young age, you know, and it's to do with the environment that you're born into and grow up in. It can be a product of emotional neglect, provided for materially, but you're not given the love and the nurturing that you needed. You know, that your kind of child can't empathize. They haven't developed that ability yet to put themselves in somebody else's shoes. So that's a real challenge for a narcissist. A narcissist is play acting at caring, is play acting at empathy, but underneath the surface, they don't give a damn. They do not give a damn about other people. Once you start to challenge them on their own behavior, they don't like that. That makes them, once you know they're a narcissist, it's like having a crocodile. Keep your distance. Don't get within biting distance, you know, and if you can, just get the hell away. That you can try, but they'll usually screw you over one way or another. Who's in a relationship with a narcissist, get away. Yeah. You know, get yourself away if you possibly can.
New questions every day, how's a brother supposed to sleep? Listen, I give youngers books.
Trying to educate myself as I'm running through these streets.
There's no such thing as black and black crime. You can hit us in the DMs if you want the smoke. Pew, pew, pew. Not sure where the conversation's gonna go.
But did you do your research? Yeah, I wanna know.
That's the life of a domino. It's the domino effect.
So, no intros needed, back for a very important round 2. This one's on narcissism. It's everyone's favorite buzzword on social media.
He's a narcissist.
Gen Z, millennial, just, yeah, it's the buzzword for everything. As Thomas Sowell says about racism, like, racism is like ketchup. You just throw on anything and it sounds great. I think that's the same thing about being a narcissist these days. So I just wanted to come, what is a narcissist to you? What would you see from a psychologist?
Is there a difference between narcissism and being a narcissist?
Or just being up your ass, like egotistical ways.
Which is quite
well, a narcissism, strictly speaking, is a formal psychological diagnosis. Yeah, it's a personality disorder, but it's also a word which is just thrown around casually quite a lot. You know, that if anybody perhaps displays a bit of selfishness, you know, or kind of, or sometimes doesn't agree with what you think, or as, you know, it's easy to say, oh, that's narcissistic, or you're a narcissist, or whatever, without really taking into account what it really means, you know. And so true narcissism, a true narcissist, is somebody that displays a specific set of behaviors or characteristics.
Such as,
okay. One of the cornerstones of narcissism is an absence of empathy, that they have an inability to see things from somebody else's perspective. Yeah.
So that's not the unwillingness to, that's the inability to.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not. Yeah. Not being willing to is that can be just being stubborn. You know.
Sorry to interject here, because this is always something that's confused me with it. It's like, when you have that lack of empathy or emotion, does that mean it's completely not there, or it's very difficult to pull out, or it can only be pulled out in certain circumstances, or is it just that absolute inability to process that type of thing?
Well, that's a good point, actually. Narcissists often develop the ability to empathize, you know, as they go through life.
Is that like,
so
with autism, you have a lot of people masking? Is that a masking technique, or is that they actually develop the ability?
They develop the ability to do it, or to say the right things. Do you know what I mean? But they often just choose not to. if you get what I mean. And when I describe what narcissism actually is.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So you said the inability to show empathy. What were the other traits in terms of feelings?
Okay, so there's lack of empathy. Now, I think the ability is often there, but they just choose not to. They are desperate for attention. Okay, and there are various different ways, various different strategies that they employ to go about getting the attention that they need, the attention that they desire, and that manifests itself in different types of narcissism. So those are the main two kind of pillars of narcissistic personality disorder, and they manifest themselves in a variety of different ways. But essentially, really, a narcissist is somebody who is all about themselves all the time. Now, they don't always display that because...
Does it always have to be all the time in order for you to be a narcissist?
Well, under the surface, yeah. Now, as a narcissist goes through life, as they evolve, they learn how to schmooze people. They learn how to function. They learn how to function socially. Do you know what I mean?
Do narcissists know they're narcissists?
A few do. A lot don't. I would say the majority don't actually see themselves as narcissists or as narcissistic. To them, they are perfectly okay, they're perfectly normal, and it's everybody else that's messed up, because they...
So I guess maybe a trait could be lack of responsibility then?
Yeah, that's one of the ways that it plays out is a reluctance or an inability to take responsibility for their own actions. So these characteristics play out in a variety of different ways, but essentially they're all about themselves all the time. Now, they can often be very charming and very generous, and
is that a tool they use to weaponize for their agenda?
That so when somebody is almost kind of too nice, too charming, too kind of generous, that's because they're using that in order to get what they want. They're trying to get you on board. Yeah. It's usually not going to last, because once they've manipulated you to get you on board, to get you into their fold, then you just become one of their kind of minions, one of their crew. They're not really all that bothered anymore, so that usually kind of burns itself out.
Do you think in certain professions you have to be a narcissist? So, for example, many CEOs, like Steve Jobs, for example, they claim that he was, because like certain CEOs, in order for them to be so successful, or Trump is a very good one, he will tell you, say we put a pen on the table here, and you're saying, maybe it'd be better this way. He'll be like, no, this is my way. The pen goes this way, and this is my way. And they stick to their guns, and that because they believe their opinion is almost like godlike.
Yeah.
And many CEOs have those qualities.
I think it can be common in CEOs, in people in people that wield a lot of power. You quoted Trump, politicians. Yeah, it's rife in politics. Absolutely. Again, it comes back to they need attention. They want to be the center of attention, and what better way to achieve that than by going into politics?
It's interesting you say that, because I was listening to a psychologist and I can't recall her name.
Yeah,
but she essentially said that there's four main groupings of narcissism.
Yeah,
and it's like a spectrum of it's just that she pinpointed that you have the people who say, for example, let's say you're an artist and you love your work and whatever, and then you go to a gallery and they don't display your work. Then you start, then you kind of go off and say, I'm not going to go to that gallery again because I didn't want to display my work. There's that level, and then there's the level where everything revolves around me. But then she also said that men show more narcissistic traits than women, but that's changing due to the fact that with the shift in how women have come into the workforce, etc., that they're developing these narcissistic traits. But she also says that narcissism in our society is rewarded. So we create narcissists by how we nurture and how we develop people. So, for example, why men are so consistently narcissists is this incessant need to always achieve. So for men, it's always, you got to get a good job, you got to do this, you got to do that. And as you grow up, you develop these narcissistic traits, which is why kids go into, the guys who go into politics always want that, everything to revolve around them. She also said that narcissism is also more prevalent in affluent society, so or among affluent people. So that's why she said, like, you'll see like conservatives, for example, tend to be more narcissistic because as a kid, when you've always had the silver spoon in your mouth, everything always rolls around you. So those traits then are nurtured and they grow, and then you go off into your respectable fields, and then those narcissistic traits emulate. So we actually create narcissists in our society, apparently.
I think that it's true that narcissists are created. Mm-hmm. The usual school of thought these days, well, certainly the way that I see it, is that narcissism and narcissistic personalities start at quite a young age. Mm-hmm. And it's to do with the environment that you're born into and grow up in, and that it's a product of either one of two things. It's a product, or it can be a product of emotional neglect. Mm-hmm. Because coming back to these characteristics of narcissists being all about themselves all the time. Yeah, that's that if you take that as a particular sort of kind of trope around narcissism. Okay, where does that come from? If you are born into a family where you're provided for materially, but you're not given the love and the nurturing that you needed, that you're kind of dismissed. So you're fed, you're clothed, but you're not given any love, and you're not given any real value. You're kind of, if you're trying to get your mum or dad's attention, you're just kind of dismissed. Now, for some people, that can be crushing, and it can lead to low self-esteem, low self-worth, developmental issues in that kind of way. Yeah. But what happens in the narcissist is that they find a way of coping with this rejection by creating a false reality. Yeah, of a kind of a delusion that, well, I am worth it, and I am, I will get my parents' attention, and I'll do anything that I can to get my parents' attention. And if I don't get it, I will create my own imaginary world where I am the best thing since sliced bread. That I'm almost this kind of this superhero or this outstanding person, in order to cope with the reality that they're being rejected. Yeah, I think it's almost like a make-believe pretend world of, no, I'm fantastic. I'm absolutely brilliant.
Oh, we see it with a lot of men that so incel community who are like involuntary celibate. Yeah. Some of them are using that support group, and they're really sad that they can't talk to women. But we've had a lot of comments, and you probably haven't seen, but from the last episode, someone actually commented, and I was just like, really and truly, it's a problem with the women, and they should be attracted to us. Everyone talks about how we don't get to, but really they talk about us as the problem, when really is the problem is in the women. It's almost like in their head, they've created a pedestal of like, women should pick me because I am so great, but the market tells you if you're great or not when you step outside. So I can see from some of the followers that we have and the comments on social media, and it's just like, some of these guys really can't understand that you're really not as important as you may think that you are.
Yeah, and they're lacking in emotional intelligence, or they're a bit deluded about what their expectations are, The other way that a narcissist can be created in childhood is by being treated as the golden child and having this message consistently reinforced that you're very special and you're more important than other people and you're so precious and so wonderful. And if that gets continually reinforced, then that person is naturally going to grow up with a kind of elevated perception of their own self-importance. Yeah, absolutely. And so it can either be sort of one extreme or the other, but it comes from childhood, and you can sometimes spot it in young children who become stuck. And that's one of the other characteristics of narcissism is that people get stuck at the toddler age of development. Okay, and
stuck in what sense? Sorry.
Their emotional development gets stuck, and it's a particular aspect of their emotional development. So it'll become their ability to manage and moderate their own emotions. The ability to empathize. So if you take a typical 3-year-old, for example. I don't know if either of you have got kids at all.
No, not yet.
I don't know of anyway.
But you may have heard of the terrible twos.
Yeah. I've got a nephew, and he's on.
Yeah. So typically, at the age of between the age of 1 and 3, a child will often go through a stage where they have complete meltdowns. There will be something that will upset them and they become inconsolable and will just be thrashing around on the floor, screaming and hollering, and there's nothing that their parents can do to manage it. You almost have to allow them to burn themselves out. Well, narcissists often behave in a similar kind of way. They will have these complete emotional meltdowns, which to the casual bystander will seem completely bizarre and unwarranted, and very embarrassing for their partner or whoever else is involved in this complete meltdown. Or it might be something that the narcissist holds on to until they get behind closed doors. So they're not doing it in front of an audience. Some will do it in front of an audience. Some will wait until they get home and then have their meltdown and then have their complete, their rage, and let this completely unfettered emotion pour out onto the, onto the poor victim. So that's one way in which in which this very childlike emotional mindset plays out. Another way is the absence of empathy. A 2-year-old or a 3-year-old child can't empathize. They haven't developed that ability yet to put themselves in somebody else's shoes. So that's a real challenge for a narcissist whose emotional development has got stuck at the age of about 3. To put themselves in somebody else's shoes, it's like, well, to see it from your point of view, how would I do that?
Next time I see a 2-year-old, that's about you, narcissist.
Yes, yeah.
It's funny you focused on primary socialization because being the most pivotal years, because it's almost like that period of where narcissism is developed is almost in that transitional period of, similar to what Freud says in his work about kids are essentially born autistic and they see the mother as one with them. Right. And then eventually they'd be able to rationalize, the mother is separate to me. It's almost that transitional period of learning of everything around me, including my mum, my family, isn't about me. It's about other people too. Yeah. And it's almost that sticking point of learning that. And it's almost they don't pick that up. Exactly.
So that for the narcissist, they never make that transition and it remains all about them. And obviously, as you're going through childhood and then into adolescence, you have to develop some social skills in order to get through life, you know. But unlike so-called normal people, you know, who do develop those skills of empathy and who genuinely care about other people, the narcissist doesn't. The narcissist is play acting at caring, is play acting at empathy, but underneath the surface, they don't give a damn. They do not give a damn about other people or what other people need or what other people want.
Another thing that was mentioned is that narcissists in our society, whether we see it or not, are rewarded. So as we spoke about the successful businessman, the entrepreneur, etc., having this, I don't give a damn about no one. On the surface, people are like, no, that's wrong. But then we reward it by the success that person achieves. So this person being able to discard people or just fight. Like I was talking to a friend and they said that where they used to work, they literally split the workforce in half and said the left side, you're all getting fired and the right side can stay. But you know, but people champion that as, oh, it was a good business move for whatever reason and forget the empathy. So our society rewards narcissism as well.
Yeah, it does. Sadly, unfortunately,
our society rewards most bad things. Like you can scum your best friend and they'll say it's good business.
Well, yeah, but you know, ethically, it's abhorrent, isn't it? You know, and sorry, you were gonna.
I just wanted to ask because a lot of the symptoms or traits of a narcissist have a lot of similar traits with a sociopath.
Yeah.
So I wondered if you could help us understand a little bit where the deviation comes from there, and because sociopaths have very little empathy, they don't care, they're very good at the master manipulators, and it seems like they clearly have a lot of narcissistic traits. But if I had two people in front of me doing these things, how would I be able to differentiate? Okay, that person's a narcissist, but this person's a sociopath.
It can be difficult to discriminate between the two, especially if you've got a malignant narcissist, which is one of the sort of subtypes of narcissism that display very sociopathic traits and behaviours, and the difference between them really is that. The narcissist, the malignant narcissist, doesn't really know what they're doing. They don't have an understanding of the harm that they're causing and how they're making somebody else feel, whereas the sociopath does, and they revel in it.
So is the difference between intention and the unconscious kind of narcissism?
It's the difference between awareness. Yeah, it's the narcissist emotionally is still the 3-year-old, you know, and so although they can see that their actions are causing harm, they don't get it from the other person's point of view, you know, that they can't fully appreciate it. Whereas
that's very autistic.
Whereas kind of maybe, but whereas a sociopath or a psychopath. They do know what they're doing it, and they're kind of getting off on it. Do you know what I mean?
But one question I was going to say, because you spoke about the child. It happens in infancy, and they can't distinguish between oneself. And you see a lot of only children. I wouldn't say they're narcissists, but a lot of only children are incredibly more selfish until they go into secondary socialization in the schools and they learn how to share.
Yeah.
Do you think there could potentially be a linkage between being an only child and potentially the chances of becoming a narcissist, or do you think
hypothetically there could be? I don't know if there's been any studies done on that.
It'd be interesting to see, and what I'd like to see is the linkage between COVID babies, the ones that have been locked indoors and weren't allowed to play. Because my nephew is a COVID baby, and my sister was saying when he went to play school, because he's been indoors with just my sister for this whole time, not even seeing family or anyone else, just with my sister. He struggled to see my sister with other people because he's so used to being indoors, just them two. And the other thing is when he went to go and play with kids for the first time, he struggled, and all the kids in that nursery struggled just because they'd been indoors, no family, no cousins, just with
just in their bubble.
Just in their little bubble.
Yeah.
So I think in years to come, I think there's like you're already starting to see.
How's it gonna play out?
Yeah.
How is it going to play out psychologically with these children? Yeah, it's a very.
There'll definitely be negatives, but I would imagine that would have also in some way created a benefit. So they will have gained a particular skill from that, whether that be like patience or being able to like, I don't know, concentrate a little bit more because they're used to quieter environments, whatever that is. But I definitely think the negatives will probably outweigh the positives, but there should probably be a bit of both, I would imagine.
It's going to be difficult to say, isn't it, really? Because it's going to be a very, if there's any sort of research studies done on this, it's going to be very longitudinal. It's going to be years before.
Be like a 20-year study, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be.
Listen, we're back again. Beard gang members. See these men here? Been connecting beards since 2019. Listen, there's 3 of us here right now. 2 beards are wavy, 1's not. It's clear to see you ain't using the product. You get what I'm saying? So if you want a certified beard, that means it'll come with chest. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Yes, I go.
Why is narcissism more prevalent in men over women, and why is it shifting?
I think it's more prevalent in men than women because it's valued more in men, those kind of behaviours, and very kind of selfish and self-centered behaviours tend to be more acceptable socially in men than in women, who are expected to be more empathetic and more communicative and more, soft and softer.
Well, I think as a woman as well, like a man with narcissistic traits, although it isn't great, like you said, a lot of them can then go and achieve great things and provide all of the other things, the stability and things like that. Whereas for women, a man isn't going to be interested in a woman or want to have a child with a woman that's not nurturing or completely self-centered and that kind of thing. So I think what you're saying there is very true in terms of like we value that more in men, and it comes back to what you were saying about rewarding. It's probably why we reward that so much more in men than probably women. I do think it's changing now, but then I think that whole gender identity and all of those debates there make it for another conversation in terms of how that's changed over the last kind of 10 years.
I think the way that it's changing. You've got things like Instagram these days. Where you've got the opportunity to create a following and basically to kind of post the best version of your life online. That's something that fosters narcissism, doesn't it? And perhaps more so in women than men. I think there are more women invested in that.
Oh yeah, there's more
than there are men, and so then that kind of creates another branch and a more kind of feminized twist on narcissism.
That's what they say. Women run social media in terms of I haven't got the analytics, but I'll put them in the section. It's essentially men follow women because they're attracted to women, and women follow other women because they're interested in what they do. So women always have all the social media engagement. The only exception would be like, say, an athlete like Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi. But if you take away football, pretty much in every space, women dominate. And you can see average women that literally like look like the bottom of my foot, but get a bit of traffic, and they generally think they're like the next thing since sliced bread. Like
you're going to get so much. You're going to get so much shit for saying that. Oh my word!
But it's like before you could have like your childhood sweetheart, or you'd kind of know each other from the area. But now with social media, because of the globalization, an average woman can be getting flown out by this rapper, by this NBA basketball player, but something which would have been not attainable, and it almost adds to now like their self-worth, and they think that they're more special than they are, and it can like feed into this where they generally, it's to the point where they won't even have a conversation if you're not of that status.
If they've got something to offer, if they've got, because we shouldn't be judging everything purely on looks, and how much flesh you got showing and all that kind of stuff.
That's what social media is.
It's very shallow, isn't it?
Of course.
So let's, it would be a better world, I think, if we were focusing more on content and not so much on titillation. But that just goes to show how messed up we are, doesn't it?
No, because I think the foundations of social media to be social and just to portray life, it started off in a good place. And it's developed into this beast now, where it's not only causing a lot of psychological problems, but again, this inflated self of ego is now the norm throughout society, which is kind of weird. But why does it have to go down this path? It's very just
human nature.
You think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So being a narcissist is a part of human nature, or this self-absorption.
I think it's a natural part of human fallibility. I think narcissism has always been there. It's always sort of going sort of once again back through the eons of time. Who was Narcissus?
Is that actually a person?
He was a Greek mythological character who fell in love with his own reflection.
What a guy.
Interesting.
Yeah. In an old Greek story. So that's where it came from. And very much, I love me, who do you love? Kind of thing.
You should also love me.
I love me. Everybody must love me.
Is this idea of narcissism, as we're discussing it, more prevalent in the West in comparison to other parts of the world, or is this pretty much universal?
Oh, that's a good question.
I think it's there in all societies. It's not just in the West.
If you look at most tyrants like Gaddafi and Idi Amin, they definitely love themselves.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And less obvious ones as well. Because a lot of narcissists go under the radar. Not all of them are so obvious. There are some that really stand out, that you can look at and you think, Jesus, man, you're so, you so tick all the boxes, but part of the problem with narcissists is that they are arch manipulators and they become very skillful at masking and cloaking their narcissism because, they know that they know that it's not really acceptable, but they can't help themselves, But they develop these skills, and you see it a lot in politicians, But that politics is absolutely flooded with narcissists, with people who are all about themselves, but are standing on a platform of, I will help you, my electorate, you vote for me and I will fight for you, and I'll stand up for you. I'll be your elected representative and vote for me because I'm the best person to vote for. And I'm a very skillful orator. I'm very persuasive. I'm very confident in what I'm saying, but all the time, I don't give a flying fuck about you lot because I'm just feathering my own nest. Yeah. And that's the, and that's the hidden part that only comes out, when it turns out that while we were all under lockdown and not being allowed to have parties, they're all partying it up in number 10.
Yeah, one rule for me and one rule for
and you. Yeah, exactly. And, and then when they're confronted by it, when they're challenged on it, they're like, oh, we were only having a few drinks. Well, hold on. We were all told that none of us could just have a few drinks. You were breaking your own rules and now you've got caught red-handed and you're still making bullshit excuses.
That's what I think.
Double standards.
I think for these guys, I think they have the one trait, but they don't have the other. I don't think they have the lack of empathy. I believe they empathize and they know exactly what they're doing. They're just choosing I'm about me. Like I know exactly what it's going to do. I know this isn't the right thing for the country. I know this isn't the right thing for people, but I'm doing this because this is the right thing for me.
But how much contrition do they show? You know, how much sincere, you know, that I accept that what I did was completely wrong and shouldn't have done it. You know, you do hear that sometimes from, from certain people, but there's been a lot of pushback and a lot of excuses, haven't there?
Yeah, getting an apology from a politician is near impossible.
Yeah.
There's always a way to get around it or an excuse and whatnot. But I was also reading that around 15% of the population are narcissists. I was shocked that the number was so big. Does that sound about right to you?
I would say 15%. That's if you'd said 10%, I'd have been probably more comfortable with that. 15% depends. It depends where you're looking.
That's 3 out of 20. That's quite a lot, man.
Yeah, that is quite a lot. I mean, there are narcissists around. I come across them, you know, and once you understand narcissism, once you see it, you can spot them.
How do you spot it? What are these things to look for? So you mentioned how in kids you can see the foundation of a narcissist being built, but then in a day-to-day, let's say I'm talking to a female or I'm doing a business deal or whatever. Like, how do I? What are the things to look out for when it comes to a narcissist?
Behavior that kind of stands out as being very self-centered. You know, they give themselves away, so they become very skilled at schmoozing people and coming across as either sort of generous or life and soul. Do you know what I mean? But they betray themselves, and they betray themselves quite often in the way they treat other people.
Okay.
You know, so you might be having a great time with somebody and they seem really genuine and really caring and really sincere, and then a waiter will come up with their food or their drinks, you know, and they'll treat them like shit. Yeah.
Or like snapping their fingers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know, and you kind of think, oh, that's a bit off. Do you know what I mean? That's not a nice way to treat that person. But it's just a little giveaway that, that under the surface, they see themselves as superior.
Okay.
Yeah. So they'll often give themselves away in that kind of way. Or go on.
Are you familiar on Thomas Green's book, 48 Laws of Power?
No.
So 48 Robert Greene. Oh, sorry, Robert Greene, my bad. He basically wrote a book on like the art of war, and he doesn't write it from a standpoint of himself. He writes it of people observed over time, whether that be Mao and all the Caesar, and he basically talks about has different principles, and if you follow them, you'll probably be successful in your field, but you may become a narcissist. So what he talks about is, one of the principles is never outshine the master. And he always talks about always use other people's work for your own benefits. So everything's all about using it as all of arts of war. But he was saying that this is what successful politicians and warlords have done since the beginning of time. And it's almost like
it's a template.
It's a template of narcissism in order to be successful that you have to follow.
The unfortunate thing is that narcissists fundamentally are very insecure people, and they're never really happy.
Is that feeding off they need to feed off other people's energy in order to validate themselves?
Yeah. Basically, they are
mentors.
They're empty on the inside. You know, there's they don't have this secure sense of self, and that's why they always need the attention and validation of other people.
This is interesting because you talking about this, my mind immediately goes to religion.
Right, yeah.
Oof, you know what I mean? So when you're talking about this sense of I'm above and how to spot a narcissist,
yeah,
I look at religion and think, are a lot of people who are religious leaders who essentially want to dictate ways of life to people. Is there elements of narcissism in religion's origin, in the people who are religious leaders? For me, the connection just seems very, very obvious.
Yeah, people who seek power and you know and are looking for basically for adoration from other people because of their status and their position. Yeah, of course.
Dalai Lama.
Can narcissists change?
Can narcissists change? It's not impossible for them to change, but
like probability-wise, like if you had 100 patients that you were all trying to convert from being a narcissist, what would you say out of those 100 patients? And obviously this is just a guess. How many of them do you think you could kind of, I don't want to say convert, but unnarcify them?
Unnarcify, you just created a new word there. Well done. Narcissists are very problematic when it comes to therapy. They do come into therapy because they love the one-to-one attention. Do you know?
So it's not even for help. They just want to.
They like, oh yeah, I'm going to therapy, and I can sit there, and somebody's going to listen to me talking about myself for a whole hour. Yeah, you know. So they are drawn to it.
Have you had any?
Yeah, absolutely. The fundamental problem is that they're very resistant to see their own faults, to see their own problems. They lack self-awareness in the same way that a 3-year-old lacks self-awareness. Yeah. So when they come into therapy, it's about everybody else. It's not about them. It's not what they've done. It's not the fact that they've abused people or it's
zero accountability.
Why do
women?
Yeah. Why do my relationships keep falling apart? Why do people keep getting upset with me and or cutting me off? And it's when it's like, well, okay, let's look at what's going on here and let's look at your own behavior. It's not my behavior, it's nothing.
It's everybody else around me.
Yeah, it's I only did that because of this and because of that, and they're all full of self-justification, and they struggle to see it. And they're resistant to change. And so what usually happens is that after a certain amount of time, they check out.
Yeah.
They've got a short attention span.
You're not listening to me.
They're not, once you start to challenge them on their own behavior, they don't like that. That makes them feel really uncomfortable and shameful, because they've got this kind of false kind of facade put up about who they are. This person that they desperately want everybody else to think that they are, which is perfect in all of these different ways. And once you get around behind it and saying, yeah, well, what's really driving it is this is all about you, isn't it?
The key thing, I think, is self-awareness. There's a YouTuber, and I forget his name, but he's like a self-proclaimed narcissist.
Self-proclaimed.
That's where we're at now.
So he's like, I'm a narcissist, but I'm here to educate people on how to not be a narcissist. So like, he knows he's a narcissist, but then he tries to teach how not to be one.
That's even feeding into his narcissism.
Potentially.
Because he's validating himself.
But one of the things he did say...
And he loves the attention.
One of the things he did say was that in order for a narcissist to essentially help themselves is to literally, as you said, first acknowledge that I am a narcissist.
Yeah.
Often they do not see that the behaviors and tendencies are narcissistic. It's self-absorption.
90% of narcissists probably have no idea that they're a narcissist.
They don't.
And
I did have a client who came to see me and completely fessed up that he said, I'm a narcissist, and just looking for help with my...
One thing I wanted to say, have you successfly treated anyone with narcissism?
Partially.
Can you break that down on what you...
Yeah, a guy came in who was who didn't identify as a narcissist, but when I talked about his behavior and his family situation, it became apparent that, he basically didn't give a damn about anybody else. And that was why he was having problems in his relationship. And so I explored that with him, and he was quite sort of interested to take that on board, and I had to tread carefully around it, because calling somebody out as a narcissist typically is something that you don't do because it doesn't go anywhere. What typically happens if you try and call out a narcissist once you identify them as a narcissist is that they'll say, "I'm not a narcissist, you're the narcissist."
They deflect.
Yeah, they deflect it, exactly.
Would hypnosis work on a narcissist?
It could, well...
tap into that subconscious aspect to help them see from an outer body.
It could potentially work as a tool of, as a tool of therapy. And I did use it with this particular client in order to kind of explore self-awareness and how he responded in certain situations, to try and give him an external perspective on himself. That's one thing you can do with hypnosis, is you can say, okay, I want you to picture yourself almost as though you're looking down on yourself like a fly on the wall when you're doing this particular behavior. And how does it feel to see yourself behaving in that way? And you're either going to get it or you're not. Do you know what I mean? Most people actually get that and can have that perspective on their own behavior and how dysfunctional it is. Yeah. So,
and just to round off, is if you had like one piece of advice that you'd give for a narcissist, what would it be?
For a narcissist or somebody who's in a narcissistic relationship?
Let's do both.
To the narcissist themselves, that's a difficult one because narcissist, being in a relationship with a narcissist or being a narcissist is like being a crocodile. Yeah. Okay.
See where this goes.
Yeah, let's see where it goes.
So if you are, imagine you've got a pet crocodile. Yeah. And the crocodile is trying to persuade you to get into the water with it. Yeah, it's like, come into the water. The water's nice and warm.
I've seen a meme about this.
Yeah, are you going to get into the water with that crocodile?
No.
Even if the crocodile says, "It's all right, don't worry, I'm not going to eat you, I promise." Yeah, are you going to get in the water with that crocodile? No flipping way, because what's going to happen as soon as you get in the water, it's going to clamp its jaws around you and drag you under. Yeah. And so that's what I would say to anybody that's in a relationship with a narcissist is, once you know they're a narcissist, it's like having a crocodile. Keep your distance. Don't get within biting distance, and if you can, just get the hell away. Yeah, because the crocodile is always going to be a crocodile. It's not going to change. Yeah.
Okay. So
in the same way,
you believe they're always
in the same way, would I try to persuade a crocodile not to be a crocodile? How's that going to go?
You might lose a leg.
A crocodile is a crocodile, and in the same way with a narcissist, most narcissists, because they see themselves as godlike, they see themselves as above other people, and I'm perfect, and it's everybody else that's, all these people beneath me that are flawed and that are, that are basically a waste of time. It's almost worthless having that conversation with them because you're talking to a brick wall. You're talking to somebody that is really never going to have that level of humility to be able to sincerely embrace change. So I don't generally mess with narcissists. I've learned, I've learned the hard way. That you can try, but they'll usually screw you over one way or another. Yeah. And I had one even. he booked in to come and see. I can't see you anymore as my client because of the circumstances. So goodbye. And he tried to re-engage with me, but I just had to do what's called going grey rock, which is anybody that's in a narcissistic relationship and needs to separate the narcissist, because they see you as, they don't see you as a human being. If you're in a relationship with a narcissist, they see you as their property, okay, like a pet. Yeah. And so if you've got a pet and your pet tries to run away, what do? Try to get it back. You try to go and get it back. Yeah. And so it's the same with a narcissist. You try and leave a narcissist will use any strategy that they can to get you back. They'll turn on the charm. They'll love bomb you like they did in the start to get you on board, to get you back so that they can then punish you. Yeah. Once they've got you back on board and they've schmoozed you and say, oh, I'm really sorry. Then it's like, right, I've got you back on board now. Okay. Now you're going to really get the punishment. Now I'm going to really repay you for betraying me and for being disloyal. Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. And that's how it is.
Real.
And so you get people that are in this cycle of being, of being emotionally abused and tormented, because each time they try and leave the narcissist hoovers them back in. Yeah.
That's why on average they say in domestic violence relationships it takes 7 attempts for the person that's getting abused to actually break away. And for most people that sounds insane, but because of obviously...
Yeah, because they know how to charm, they know how to manipulate, and they promise that, no, this time it's going to be different. This time we're going to be good. Yeah. And they hoover them back in, and then the cycle starts all over again. And it takes that many times for the poor victim whose own self-worth has gradually been eroded until until they've really become dependent,
on
this person.
That bombshell.
So to somebody who's in a relationship with a narcissist, get away.
Yeah.
Get yourself away if you possibly can. Yeah.
And again, where can people find you? If they ever need support for this type of thing?
On my websites.
What's your website called?
It's changeyourmind, all is one word, .limited, that's ltd.uk, or online-counselling.uk. And you just
social media.
Yeah, find me on social media. If you Google Peter Phelps therapist, you'll find me. If you just Google Peter Phelps, you get the Australian actor. Yeah. Just look me up, or if you can't find me, just go with some kind of therapy. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
And you people know what to do. Like, share, and subscribe.
Skia.